Number 8 of the top 10 reasons to lightweight roll is broadleaf weed, moss, and algae reduction. When I first made the discovery of rolling decreasing broadleaf weeds, I'd have to say I was stunned. I think the year was 1996, and I noticed that in my putting green research greens, I actually had some plantain and some mousy or chickweed, and actually really small dandelions growing on some of my greens. And I noticed that none of these weeds were growing on the greens that I was rolling. We took the data, and it was statistically significant without question that rolling had decreased weeds. Moss was another thing we discovered, and we went out and counted basically little dime-sized areas, or about that big areas of moss growing. And when we made those counts, again, where we were rolling, we found that there was less moss. Dr. Douglas Karcher at the University of Arkansas did a study with the Tru-Turf roller, and when he was doing that, he found down in Arkansas is what we call the transition zone, and on his cool season grasses in the summer and some rains, they were getting some algae growth. And he noticed that by rolling where his rolled plots were, he had less algae. Now the question is, why would this be? And I'd always gone with the premise that rolling probably made a thicker, denser turf. And if you have a thicker, denser turf, it stands to reason that it's harder for any of those, any broadleaf weed, moss, or algae to actually get that foothold to start having good growth. They need that light, and rolling seems to give us a much better, smoother surface, and a smoother surface means it must be more uniform, so more dense. I've come to question that, and others have questioned it as well. I think that's still true, but there might be more to it than that. I have a master's student at this time by the name of Nick Binder, who's doing a study on rolling sports fields. So we've basically got a soccer pitch mown at roughly 1.5 inches, and so what's that? About 3 centimeters?
30 mils.
About 30 mils? Okay, so he's mowing at 1.5 inches or 30 mils, and we're rolling 3 times a week or 5 times a week compared to not. And in any event, an observation he's made recently was that the clover in the plots that are rolled, and we're just establishing these plots at this time. We haven't actually started the data, we've just been rolling it for about 6 weeks now. And the observation we've made, or Nick has, is that the rolled plots, the clover actually is getting a disease. And we think, but on the plots that aren't rolled, they're disease-free. Interesting. I don't know what this is going to mean yet, but that might have something to do with it. Another superintendent had also mentioned to me when it comes to the moss reduction, because he'd read that I'd said that I thought it was because that rolling had this better canopy, better density, so less moss. He sent me some pictures that I thought were very telling, and it was actually of a cart path that was in a heavily treed area and was moist. And the entire cart path was covered with moss except for where the cart tires always go. And his premise was, just by the traffic, just like on that cart path, the traffic on the green that of the rolling might help stop the moss from actually growing. I thought it was a very interesting point. Why any of these are actually reduced, we still can't say with 100% certainty, but we can say with 100% certainty that lightweight rolling, at least 3 times a week on your golf course greens, or probably any other fine surface, does decrease broadleaf weeds, it does decrease moss, and it can decrease algae as well.